lunch break to be here. Today we are going to discuss about understanding the concept of human rights. It's a bit different type of side event that we are usually organizing in the Human Rights Council. The idea is to understand the very human rights, the definitions of the human rights, and what we are meaning by human rights every time that we are referring to this concept. Human rights, as we know, are deeply entrenched in the international system and United Nations. There is also admission that 75 years after their first enactment, violations are not only persistent, but increasing in some cases. It's time to ask whether the current concepts, instruments, and their interpretations are meeting the challenge of a multipolar and a plural order that is emerging. The UDHR and other human rights treaties are considered universal and sacrosanct in the UN system, right? While we can continue to support this, it is the universalism in interpretations that may be problematic. Interpretation have a degree of subjectivity and cultural hegemony that we need to examine today. Today we hear 4 speakers from different parts of the world and different backgrounds on how human rights principles are perceived and interpreted variably. So I will give, first of all, floor to Dr. Jastev Singh Rai, Director of Sikh Human Rights Group, to talk about how Sikhism is seeing the human rights. Because on one side, we know there is human rights as it is enacted in 1948 UDHR, and then human rights that have existed before the very legal document. We know that the social norms are evolving before they are becoming part of the legal instrument. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. We are in a very interesting period in history. The world is in transition. There is increasing talk about multipolarity and multilateralism. And I would say the world is also moving towards pluralism. Countries and civilizations that have engaged under the shadow of a universalist United Nations may be beginning to question some of the fundamental assumptions. We may be moving towards a pluralist order rather than a universalist order. There is a general assumption that human rights are universal. Are they as universal as gravity, for instance? If they are universal, why are there so many abuses and derogations around the world? We are a small organization and obviously not in a position to precipitate changes. However, we think the debate needs to happen and the question needs to be asked that are there issues either with the doctrine behind universal declarations or with the interpretations? As an organization, we start from the position that we accept the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and other human rights treaties are universal. The issue may be in how they are interpreted and how their implementation is judged across the world. Can there be one lens and one approach to judge them without taking cultural and civilization idiosyncrasies or differences? After all, civilizations have evolved over centuries, if not thousands of years. Can the inherent wisdoms in them be dismissed by a few countries getting together in 1948? For instance, let us look at Islam. It doesn't have the provision of a secular alternative. And how does it fit in with the dualist approach of the United Nations? We have seen the attempts to have a resolution on to stop burning of the Quran. Now, the Quran is considered as a collective, I would say, representation or consciousness of the Muslim people worldwide. Whereas on the other hand, there is this right to individual freedom of expression. Can individual freedom of expression really violate and offend a collective consciousness? And we don't have those concepts within the UN system. South Asian civilizations are also not generally dualist. The concept of secularism doesn't really exist historically in South Asian civilizations. It was considered as just another philosophy with the other philosophies that have evolved over centuries. And all worldviews are not necessarily atheistic, but they are bracketed into the category of religion. So Buddhism is considered as religion, Hinduism considered as a religion, Shintoism is considered as a religion, Sikhi is considered as a religion. But who gives the right to people who categorize these worldviews into these brackets? And by putting them into these brackets, also reducing and limiting their expression and their rights within the whole system. So a question that I would ask is, even science in the cutting edge is moving towards the theory of a conscious cosmos. So if they come up with the idea of the cosmos being conscious, will science become a religion as well? Yeah? It seems to be that the whole entire world has to move at the progress of one civilization or one part of the world. We as Sikhs don't have a dualist perspective. We don't understand what the secular is because we are pluralistic. We don't proselytize, we don't impose, we don't have this idea of a monopoly of the truth and things like that. We're not prescriptive. So how do we get marginalized into what the description of religions is in Western civilization? I'll bring the challenges faced by Sikhs in this universalist approach and then show you a practical example where there is a misfit between how we see the world and how the UN has more or less persuaded or forced or everybody, the whole entire world to see the world. There's one worldview here, but there are many other worldviews which are not accommodated within the system. We wear turbans, but not all Sikhs who wear turbans can be considered to be religious. There are many turban-wearing Sikhs who are atheists and agnostics. How do they fit into the religious bracket? We don't understand. Okay? So we seem to become victims in the crossfire of human rights interpretations. If you take the UDHR, which says, okay, everybody has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. But is everything that is not secular a religion? That's a question. Yeah? Is everything that doesn't come out from Western academia a religion? Is everything that is not constructed within the Western academic sphere a religion? Okay. Now, we look at ICCPR, then it goes on to limit the rights of those, what it is brackets. First it brackets as a religion, then it gives right to states to limit the expression of those people. And it says, manifestation of one's religion or beliefs may be subject only to such limitation as are prescribed by law and are necessary to protect public safety, order, health, or morals, or fundamental rights and freedom of others. And of course, Article 19, which is about freedom of expression, does bring in a responsibility on states or people to respect the rights and reputations of others. Here again, I ask the question, if the Muslims treat the Quran as a collective conscious, doesn't the burning of Quran then disrespect the Muslim world? Can that individual right of freedom of expression override the collective conscious of, because that doesn't seem to feature into the UN system? If I give you our history in the Western world, how we had to overcome the difficulties. In the 1960s, when the Sikhs migrated to the UK, there was a Sikh, turban-wearing Sikh, who wanted to join a bus company as a conductor. I think you don't have conductors these days, but they used to be as a driver, and then a conductor used to help people get on, issue tickets and things like that. He was told that the uniform here is you have to wear a cap, and therefore you have to take a turban off. So there was a lot of demonstrations. There were demonstrations in India. There was support from the Indian government, etc. Eventually, that bus company relented. But it was an accommodation. The law had not changed. The law was still that the company could mitigate or can order a Sikh bus driver or conductor to remove his turban. We then had a famous case in the UK called the Mandla case. A young boy who got admission into a private school and was told to take his turban off, and he refused. It went to the courts. Now, this is where the British have been more accommodating, more flexible in these interpretations, which some of the Western European countries haven't. They tend to interpret the secularity with the conviction of a religion, whereas the British have had a much more flexible approach. So it went to the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal said that the headmaster is right, consistent with the ICCPR article that they can limit the manifestation or expression of that religion. Therefore, the child has to take his turban off. But then he went to House of Lords in UK, that was the appellate court. It is now the Supreme Court. What they did was, seeing the difficulties that the ICPR and the UDHR imposes on countries, the House of Lords said, the Sikhs are not strictly just a religious community. They're an ethnic community. Therefore, it came under the Race Relations Act, and the rights of race are stronger than the rights of religion. Hence, by calling the Sikhs an ethnic community, they were taken out of the bracket in which you could limit the rights of expression. And we achieved our rights in the UK on that. But now you see what happened in France. The laicity law. And I asked the French, look, the child may not be religious. He's wearing a turban because he's a Sikh. Oh no, we call you religious. So here's the state is deciding who is religious and who is not religious. And they're bound by the limitations of ICCPR. It may not be the limitations of ICCPR, it may be the way it's interpreted in this case. And the French and the Swiss, to that extent, just also interpret it in that very rigid way. Whereas in the Anglo-Saxon countries, such as Britain, Canada, USA, they have taken a much more flexible and accommodating approach, saying, yes, we understand that you have fallen through the lacuna of the law, And human beings being human beings, we can't produce the ultimate truth and ultimate law that will be so universal that nobody can break it. So they were able to accommodate, but we have problems here. For us, the word religion does not really describe us at all. Religion exists because the secular exist. If you don't have a dualist perspective, then why is the UN imposing this dualist perspective around the world? It is something that is an evolution of European civilization. They had conflicts, etc. They decided, because religion here was proselytizing, was proscriptive, and they decided the public sphere needs to be secular. Fair enough. But the belief systems of India are not prescriptive, they are not proselytizing, and they work in the search of truth, not in giving the truth. They don't prescribe the truth. They're a little bit like scientists, where except they believe that there is a consciousness and we have to search for the truth. And there's a discipline to doing that. So why is all that civilization now fragmented into a dualist perspective? And can the UN move on beyond that, beyond one civilization, and say, fine, this is what the Europeans are, but this is what the Indians are, and this is what the Chinese are. In the Chinese civilization, there is a balance between the individual and their obligations to society and duties and things like that. Where are they within the whole interpretation system? We don't know. So we did bring this issue at the World Conference Against Racism in 2001, saying, we are the one community who will walk away from this conference still feeling discriminated, not because the people want to discriminate against us. And believe me, the French ministers also said, our hands are tied. We want to accommodate you, but we don't know how to accommodate you. Okay? So it wasn't as if they wanted to be discriminatory, but they said, we don't know how to do it. Okay? So there was a paragraph created there with the support of Canada and India and Australia and then the whole world, that we recognize that members of certain groups with a distinct cultural identity face barriers arising from a complex interplay of ethnic, religious, and other factors, as well as their traditions and customs, and call upon states to ensure that measures, policies, and programs aimed at eradicating racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and religious intolerance address the barriers that this interplay of factors creates. For us, the barrier is the hegemony of one worldview. Its incapacity to coexist and understand other worldviews. And that barrier also exists within the interpretations in the UN. And that is, I think, we are in a period of transition. Perhaps this is also one of the areas we need to look at, how the different civilizations of the world can influence some of the fundamental assumptions within the UN, so we move towards a more peaceful world where we coexist rather than fighting each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rai. As we could have seen, to this from academic point of view, feminist and cultural critic theory are joining, and this is gaining more and more momentum, that human rights have focused too much on the interests of the Western states and taking as a basis Judeo-Christian understanding of the world. And we need to re-examine the human rights system to include also the needs, but also the ideas from the global south, which will enrich our discussion. So now I'm giving the floor online to Daryl Messer. He's a professor of bioethics and biomedicine, provost of American University of Sovereign Nations, and head of Asian Bioethics Association, to bring his perspective to this discussion. Daryl, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Kia ora, it's a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, please use your headphones.
Okay.
Yep, can
Hello.
You start again?
Yes, so it's a great pleasure to be with you. Can you hear me clearly? So Kia ora, thank you for allowing me to join virtually. It's 5 years since I was in person in Geneva at the time the pandemic was called. The concepts of human rights have been tested and explored ever since. We've talked so far in the presentation by Professor Joseph Rai on the questions of the universal diversity of human rights and how legal instruments such as the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, conventions on human rights, various United Nations treaties and declarations try to reconcile the question of to what degree are we the same? Let me start with a common question that I will ask in a conference or a class. Do all people possess equal human rights? And if you think about this question, how would you answer it? We might answer by saying, yes, they fundamentally do. Or we might say no. Some children are much more likely to be killed by famine or bad health policy.
We are having some technical problems.
We cannot hear you, Daryl.
Okay, since we have some technical problems, maybe we can go to our next speaker, Biro Diawara, and then Daryl will join us again, if it's possible. So Biro Diawara is Secretary General of Interfaith International and representative of Rencontre africaine pour la défense des droits de l'homme. Biro is going to talk about Kurukom Faga Charter of African Human Rights. And we were discussing just on Friday about that. I was really impressed about having 13th century artifact from Africa talking about some of the most famous universal human rights and seeing that universality of these human rights are not coming from one single cultural source, but they are coming from multiple cultural sources. Biro, the floor is yours. And thank you for being with us.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. I would like to thank my friend, Dr. Rai, for his initiative in organizing this important meeting with RADO. I hope we will continue our mutual cooperation. As you know, the guarantee of respect for human rights is not subject to any condition other that of being human right. They apply to all individuals irrespective of any other condition such as citizenship or capacity for discernment. These values, which are inseparable from the condition of being human, are a law found in international standards, especially freedom, sociality, and the guarantee of existence. According Article 1 of Human Rights Declaration, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and right. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. For us, a child born at Geneva Hospital has 100% chance of surviving, whether he or she was born in Sudan or Afghanistan or Iraq. The universality of human rights is recognized by all the member states of the UN, but the problem is the interpretation according to the different culture and the traditions. You will recall that at the Commission on Human Rights, the champion state in terms of human rights violation were mainly African, Asia, and Latin American states. The situation of politicization and selectivity helped to further polarize the issue of human rights until the creation of the Human Rights Council in 2006. As you know, the first World Declaration of Human Rights dated back to 12th century. This year, we celebrating the 790th anniversary of the proclamation of the Kurkanfuga Charter, known as Mandenka Charter. It was adopted on the occasion of enthronement of King Sunjata Keita. This charter predates Magna Carta. There are several texts of the charter. The one described below, which with dates back 112-22 and comes from work carried out from 1970 by Wa Kamisoko and Yusuf Tata Sise, was included in 2009 by UNESCO on the list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity. In 1949, the Guinean scholar Mr. Suleiman Kante published a compilation of 130 legal rules of the Mandenka Charter. You know, this charter compiled, I will resume, just to give the particularity of African contribution to universal values. We don't have time, we can take all the days to explain and give, to have a seminar, specific seminar on the situation of the charter. You know, the empire was affected several wars. There was one dictatorship called Sumaoro Kante who brutalized all empire from 10 to 12th century. And then all those kings from empire decide to come together to adopt peace. And the charter was adopted in the region, the frontier border with Guinea and Mali, called Kirina. After Kirina War, all those kingdoms from empire meet there to accept a peace agreement. According, that time, Mandan Charter was adopted, and I will resume 7th Charter of Mandan Kurkanfuga Charter. The first article of the Kurkanfuga, all life is life. Second article, wrong demand reparation. The third, help one another. Fourth article, watch over the homeland. Fifth, we are together to combat servitude and hunger. Sixth, let torment of war cease. 7, everyone is free to say, do, and see. As you know, the conception of universality of the human right is a misunderstanding as misinterpretation of ancestral cultures and traditional values. It's important, even we would like taught universality and dignity to respect our values, who we are from, to learning from others' values, who can enrich humanity, to bring everybody together to talk about our common universality, and the respectful order is from Indian traditional and African traditional, European or Latin American is same. I stop here, and thank you very much for your presence, and I hope we'll continue to discuss. If you need any comment or question about the Mandan Charter, I will be able to give you more detail and information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Biro. And I think it was very informative. And I guess some people are hearing about this charter first time. You can go and check on internet about this charter. It's really very interesting. And I think this is also bringing also the points that you mentioned. Can I have all life is life, and rights that we are on hunger and on finding food? Yes, this one. We need to help each other, and we need to work together to fight the hunger, for example. This is actually challenging any criticism that can be bringing the cultural aspects of different civilizations into the debate of the existing human rights, that it is in any way cultural relativism or something. Here we are talking about all life is life. We are saying that there is other cultures which are bringing their perspectives on exactly same right to life, on exactly same right to life that 1948 document is talking about, and we are seeing it in a document dating back 13th century, and even some more progressive documents, progressive rights that we cannot find in 1948 document, like right to the food, like to the healthy food. So now I was informed that the technical issue that we have encountered was resolved, and I'm pleased to give the floor back to Daryl. Daryl, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Let's pray that
Please use your headphones.
Okay, so I pray that the issue is resolved. Thank you so much. So universal diversity, I think, is again reinforced by the last intervention. How do we respect human rights? The evidence, if there's no conflict between universalism in terms of universal diversity and cultural diversity, the respect is actually the essence of human rights. I respect you as another being. I respect your point of view. In our field, for example, of biomedical ethics, several issues, there is no 100% consensus, such as views on euthanasia. What is a good death or a dignified death? What is the right of a woman to abortion, or the right of the life of a fetus or embryo? How do we resolve these conflicts? We find universal diversity in every culture. The challenge for government, for policymakers, who some of you are policymakers, is how do we represent into a policy that respects often strongly held views on issues which have diversity and will always have diversity. If we go back in history, we can see writings not just 700 years ago, but 3,000 years ago on euthanasia, on abortion, on slavery, on freedom, on these issues, some of which we all have very strongly held views. How do we resolve it? And it doesn't mean that we will tolerate abuses of human rights, yet we also have to represent different ways of expressing. Yet if we do it too loosely, we have a so-called in English, a wishy-washy policies which do nothing. Yet, on the other hand, we often see examples where some countries will establish laws to really articulate in meticulous detail choices which they say represent human rights. And this craft or art of ethical policy making in human rights and the philosophy of human rights is one avenue I think we need to move forward. And that's why one of the calls that we've been making in the Sikh Human Rights Group, and many of us not followers of the Sikh religion, is this call for representation of diversity, going beyond not just the cultural diversity. I worked as a regional advisor for Asia Pacific for UNESCO for a decade of my life. And at the same time as we worked on documents such as the Universal Declaration on Bioethics and Human Rights, which provides a framework for describing and prescribing what ethical issues may be common. So, for example, the issue of vulnerability. Now, we've talked to that. Is the issue of vulnerability why we would argue for the right to food, as the chair just mentioned, or the right to life? Is it because we fragile human beings are vulnerable? Now, every country in the world recognizes this vulnerability, but how do we protect it? How do we argue for so-called right to food and tolerating choices. Do we let people waste food, or do we let people grow their own food? Do we now have the challenges in our trading systems? In the country I currently live in, it's experiencing an interesting phase in its expressions of neoliberalism and rights and testing the waters, which are challenging many, I think, established norms of what is a culturally acceptable or internationally acceptable. We have also some human development challenges. Many of you may have also worked in human development. How do we tolerate, as I started in the introduction, this death of a person every 3 seconds in the day and night from bad policy in providing food or health, in fact, in not providing? How do we tolerate that? So we may be challenged by a war, which may kill a child every 10 minutes in some parts of the world, but every 3 seconds we're letting someone die from hunger or health or lack of infrastructure, bad policy. These need to be wake-up calls for us to go beyond the challenges of discussions on the universality or cultural relativism of human rights to actually implementing a practical vision. So where we can agree, let's work on policy to make the situation better. I grew up in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and this is some part of the essence of me in my identity. I have a Maori queen and an English king, and I'm living in a decolonized world, but facing many of the dilemmas of the construction of European-centered ways of thinking. But that is one of the challenges here. And I think as we explore together in forums, we need to represent the voiceless. People on islands whose population may be only 500 people in a nation. Let's say island of Niue. Half the population is living in my home country, New Zealand, and half living on their homeland. To a huge country such as India or China, with many different indigenous roots, peoples, different views or worldviews. We have to celebrate this diversity, and I think that is the strength of human rights, the recognition that we're much more than a discussion on universalism. We are applauding cultural and ethnic diversity of views and celebrating it. And in the forum today, you've joined a side event. We have time for questions. We welcome them. But this celebration of our diversity is the universality that is implicit in allowing us to have dialogue on these issues, listening patiently and learning from each other. Thank you so much for the time, and thank you for coming together to remind us of the need for recognition of celebration of diversity in human rights. Thank you.
Dr. Macer, for also respecting the time limits. As we could have seen, it's very important to celebrate the diversity by uploading the diversity to the existing system of the human rights, and also representing the voiceless. As Dr. Macer has mentioned, there are countries, there are islands that there are only 500 people, and their voices are also very important to be represented in different forums. Now I'm giving the floor to Leonardo Perez, associate researcher at Pierre Dubois Foundation for Current History, to talk about his perspectives of the concept of the human rights. Dear Leonardo, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I have my slides, the last slides, the seventh one. Yeah, the last dash. Thank you. So yeah, I think it's very important the difference you make between universalism and pluralism. So I will keep that and the difference between citizenship and human rights. And then I thank you for the invitation. I'm very honored to be here because I saw in your paper that you prepared for this event that you mentioned the coca leaf. So when I saw that you will be speaking about human rights and coca leaf, I immediately understood that there will be an alternative way to speak about human rights. I see it is well needed. Well, why I put this photo there? But we have in the background the United Nations, that is a Western work with human rights, and there we have an tipi, which is part of the Dakota people, and is part of the governance of Dakota people and different peoples around the world. So first, before presenting an alternative way to see human rights, and assuming that if you have an alternative way of conceptualize human rights, you have an alternative, a different way of advocate for human rights. I will just mention that I think everybody will agree that that is the declaration of the right of the man, of the citizen in the French Revolution, that is like a milestone for human rights, and this is where everything developed afterwards. The problem here, and that's the critics, so you're speaking about dualism, is that this declaration put, at one side, it put the human being, and the other side, the citizen. That's a big problem, and we are living in the consequence of this problem because, well, the states develop to guarantee the rights of the citizens, but who guarantees the right of the men of humankind? But nobody. So we need to think in a system, and you criticize the United Nations. We need to think in a system that really defend, advocate human rights directly, not based on the rights of the citizens, but on the rights of the human. That's a big issue. That's a big problem we can develop there. But I will take this tendency of Western thinking of dividing human, citizen. That's a big problem because it's an exception. Only Western do that. There is a French anthropologist called Philippe Descola, who shows he made fieldwork in different parts of the planet, and he shows that and on most of the planet, maybe I can have the second slide, please. Peoples see they see it linked together with the territory. Nature is embodied in the peoples. It's just Western that divide nature and people, nation and humans. And it is this vision, these dualistic visions that have been imposed to understand human rights. That's a huge mistake here. I have something that is called the 7 sociocultural regions, but the 5 groups, you can go to the first one. We have the 5 groups. You're familiar with this. This is the way here at the Human Rights Council, we negotiate the presidency of the Human Rights Council, for example. There is a rotation with these groups, but these groups, these are state groups. Now we can go to a second slide. In New York, there is the Forum on Indigenous Issues, and they developed this view of the world in 7 sociocultural regions. And this is a view from the peoples. In New York, they try to work together. The interesting is that it's a mechanism that is used in the United Nations, but it's not written. It's just oral, but it helps to work in New York for the discussion between states and indigenous peoples. I said at the beginning, different conceptions of human rights should have different ways to advocate for human rights. So the question would be, in a holistic, you have a holistic way of seeing the world, you integrate it with the territory, how you advocate for your human rights, how you advocate for human rights in a not dualistic way. Quite difficult because we are here in this institution. So how we can manage to use this space in other space, in other way? Well, in these 7 sociocultural regions, we have something that is very particular, and is the use that is made of different instruments, but mainly the drum. The drum is a quite universal instrument. The drum, indeed, there are peoples in different, in Asia, in North America, even in the Amazon, and here in Europe also, that use the drum as you can see it as a metaphor of the heart. The beating of the drum is like the heart, pam, 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 pam. And this during hours and together, it can help to embody the relation with the territory. It means no the person here and the nature there, but the territory with all the persons and embodied during hours. Pam, 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 pam. That is another way, is not to come here to the Room 20 and Mayan statement, that is very important. But with this collective energy that we produced, we can do some tasks. We can accomplish an objective. Could you move the slides?
You have 1 minute left.
Okay. So this tipi. We built this tipi in the Place des Nations because Leonard Peltier, who is a leader of the Lakota people in the United States, they were in prison like for 50 years. We asked for his liberation with drums during hours, and well, now I'm very thankful that he has been liberated. So just to show you a particular way of doing advocacy from another perspective of human rights. And I just, to finish, I invite you to try to find your ways to challenge the colonialism of human rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leonardo, for your perspectives. It was very interesting. And now we have only 3 minutes left, and I think we can take 1 question. If someone has a question or comment, go ahead. Please present yourself.
I'm from UN Association of China. Thank you very much for hosting this side event on such an interesting topic. And thank all previous speakers for their informative and insightful presentations. So instead of questions, I'm happy to share China's perspective on human rights from a cultural standpoint. Human rights are not the monopoly of the West. China has a unique and profound understanding of human rights, deeply rooted in its rich cultural heritage. Chinese culture places great emphasis on the concept of harmony, harmony between man and nature, harmony among people. Different from the West focus on individualism, China's human rights concept integrates both individual rights and collective rights. From the perspective of traditional Chinese culture, individuals are an inalienable part of the community. The well-being of the individual is closely related to that of the group. This means that while China respects and protects the legitimate rights and interests of every individual, such as the right to life and the right to development, it also attaches great importance to the collective rights of the entire nation, such as national sovereignty, national development, and social stability. Moreover, the concept of collective rights in China is also manifested in the culture's efforts to promote common prosperity and common development.
I'm sorry for cutting you, and I'm also sorry that others couldn't ask questions. We need to conclude the event because it's 3 o'clock. But thank you very much for coming, and hope to see you in the next Human Rights Council session side event to continue this discussion. Thank you very much.